2010, Sarah Walsh was part of the first and so far only Matildas team to win the AFC Asian Cup, and now she's the COO of the 2026 tournament, which takes place in March next year. Thanks so much for making time today, Walshy.
Oh, thanks for coming to visit me.
Does it feel like it's getting really close now?
It does, because, when you're part of the organising team, you really have to kind of be methodical and disciplined with your time. Something I learned from, being a Matilda and working in high performance is that where you spend your time and energy is really important when you have a pretty, quick runway to delivery. We had about 15, 16 months to deliver this one. The one in 2015, they had about 4 years. So, we are doing it off the back of FIFA expectations. So I see that as a bit of a privilege and an honour to be able to deliver the next big major tournament here after the Women's World Cup. So we've, I think the community have high expectations, players, officials, our staff, are thinking about that daily to make sure that we deliver the best ever Women's Asian Cup.
Yeah, I think I was speaking to you at the Asian Cup draw and you were saying out of all the people that were involved in the World Cup, you wouldn't have imagined that you'd be the COO of this one. But, how did you actually find yourself in this role in the first place?
Yeah, in this role?
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a journey since I played, and Heather Garriock is now the interim CEO of Football Australia, so we were very close teammates. We actually grew up in Campbelltown together as 13-year-olds, so I think if you were to ask our families if they thought that we would be, one would be running the Women's Asian Cup and one would be running the tournament, actually they've already had a laugh about that. So, but I think, the journey since playing has been a long one. I've always, I think much like you, always wanted to improve things, and you see a gap and you try fill it and make sure that you are improving things for the next generation. When I played, I always felt like that. I never felt like the jersey was actually mine. It was, I had it for a period of time to make sure that, I progressed the game in it. And so I did the same post-career. I moved into Football Australia, had a various number of different community engagement roles, and then one of my biggest roles was the legacy one during the World Cup. That was a pretty big 3 years. So the transition to come to this kind of, when you think about my history, it brought together, my thinking and leadership from high performance, my ability to understand, how to improve the game through a tournament, through legacy, and I think bringing those two things together, it was a new and exciting role for me to actually be responsible for the delivery of kind of the actual tournament operations. And I think it was kind of a map of my career coming together for this role.
It kind of does sound like that when you were still a player, this was kind of the kind of thing that you wanted to do. Did you have plans of wanting to be involved in this way?
Yeah, I did. No, I think I was, and I genuinely am like this anyway, but I'm quite curious, and so trying to find the root cause of issues, and I often would be quite curious about the decisions that were made at the Federation. I was on the Players Union executive, and if you're going to complain about things, you better be solutions focused. So I was always trying to find myself in a role that I could ask the right questions. Ask why we weren't getting the funding we deserved, and I had a lot of great teammates that felt the same. So I think something, I was always raised to think if you see something, you shouldn't walk past it. And so I utilised that kind of mindset to, kind of get into the Federation and start to ask those questions. And, I think that all, with the players and, that kind of thinking was the reason why we had pay equity in 2019, one of the first national teams globally to have that. So it's not just me, there's many Matildas and, Socceroos that have paved the way. Particularly I'm finding in this role, I'm drawing on all of my skills and, my makeup, my resilience, my ability to push through and make good decisions. You think about how many decisions a footballer will make on the pitch under pressure each game. You use these things you don't even know you have. I make probably 100 decisions a day, and you do it under pressure, and you've got to work out which ones are one-way or two-way doors that can't be reversed. And all that stuff I kind of learnt, not in theory but in practice. So I think maybe I spent more time doing that given I was a professional athlete, but I think all young women, particularly who play sport, learn those skills, whether it's grassroots or Matildas. Do you play sport?
Yeah, play sport
Yeah.
myself as
Well,
well.
you learn social skills. You learn how to be disciplined. You learn to put your team first. Team first is a really big thing because you don't get to deliver a tournament with, over 100 people without thinking about the team. And
true.
so, when you put yourself first, and sometimes you have to put yourself first to make sure that you can be a good leader. But that's what, yeah.
But I did just want to also touch on the World Cup in relation to the Asian Cup as well. We obviously saw, like, I guess the big crowds that it brought, and obviously you were a big part behind that and everything. But was there, like, maybe one thing that you weren't expecting to happen, like maybe a moment or something that just showed, like, the growth of women's football?
Yeah, I think the Courtney Vine moment, I've replayed that moment in my mind. Just the way that it brought together, you could say 80% of Australia. We knew that when we would think about creating moments, and Matildas of the Women's World Cup were a massive driver of that. You can't deny that. I'm now running a tournament, and there is absolutely no doubt that having the host country run deep is really important for local momentum, whether it's media and fans, and so we need them to run deep. We need them to do well, but actually, it's more about how they won. If you think about the drama around 10 penalty shootouts, I'm not sure, like the drama of not having Sam Kerr, like all these things kind of fell into place where people got to know who Hayley Raso was down at, Amy Park against Canada. So there were so many moments that led to that big moment. And, I think a lot about that around what are the moments going to be for the Women's Asian Cup. I think they're going to be just as fierce but different. You think about bringing, 1.1 million Chinese Australians together. Like, what does that sound like in a stadium? What does it sound like to engage with 1.1 Australians who identify with Indian heritage? I mean, it's going to have a different feel and buzz to it. I'm excited by that.
Well, yeah, I actually wanted to ask about that. I think I was reading that it's something like 3.1 million Australians, trace their heritage to just the 11 competing nations in this AFC Asian Cup. Like, what are the plans, I guess, to, like, not just engage, I guess, the visitors that are coming, obviously that's important, but also just, like, the existing communities here?
It's so important because, I mean, the Matildas will only play 6 matches if they make the finals. It's only 6 matches. There's another 21 matches that we're very much focused on. We also have a lot of matches over in Perth, and by virtue of, when you break that 3.1, it's actually more than that, but you break that up into where they live across the country. We have to get them excited enough to, travel. They have to travel to Perth. We have to think about how we get them moving from the East Coast to, the West Coast. We have to think about international visitation from the neighbouring countries. Historically, we haven't seen a lot of travel for Asian Cups for outside of the families that go to watch their women play on the pitch. But we have a lot of work to do to make sure that, one, they know about the event, two, that they're excited enough to attend. But, we're really going to tap into that patriotism of those, fans and communities to turn up for, 3 matches of a group stage.
That's true.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, I did want to say, because I mean, I grew up in an area where there was quite a big Asian population, and I remember kids in my class during the basketball Asian Cup saying I was supporting China, not Australia. I was in the crowds cheering for China. Like you said, I guess obviously we do need people to travel and actually turn up to the games, but how good could the crowds be, not just for Australia but for the other countries if that happens?
Yeah, it's and that actually is the core of what we want for this tournament. There's decisions we've made within stadiums to cut off bays just for the fans of these nations, not outside of our, you're obligated to hold tickets for those teams, but actually we're holding them to make sure that we can tell those fans that, if you come, you're going to be in the broadcast arc, you're going to be able to wave your flags, you're going to be able to represent your country off the pitch. We're really tapping into that to make sure that it's meaningful. Particularly as you get into the knockout rounds where tickets are going to be high demand because of the Matildas fans. Yeah. But I think something that we often don't realise is that a lot of these fans actually have 2 teams. They're either a fan of the Matildas and Vietnam because they're 2nd, 3rd generation migrants here. And that excites me because, not only can you support the team of, your family's heritage, but the country that you live in. So it's multifaceted. In some families, there's 4 teams that they're going for, and there's families that speak many languages. So I'm excited. I don't even think we know what what that will bring to the tournament just yet. We got a glimpse in 2015 when the men's Asian Cup was on. I think it's really just going to bring these fans out and in big numbers.
It does sound like the atmosphere could be pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at Iran versus Australia, right, up on the Gold Coast, that's one of our biggest sellers. That's probably the one that we're going to exhaust our inventory early. Those Iranian fans with their drums, it is going to be like no other. And even for the Matildas fans that have seen the Matildas before, they would never have seen an atmosphere like that where they get to experience the culture of Iran, and whether that's through the music. And we're definitely going to make sure we balance that.
I guess one of the other matches I was looking at is the one on International Women's Day where the Matildas are playing South Korea. But
yeah.
I guess we saw what the Cricket World Cup did on International Women's Day a few years ago. But are there any big plans for that one as
Massive plans for that. That's actually one of our top sellers, that one. We've sold the most amount of tickets for that. So if you don't have your tickets, get in early or call me later. But it's, we thought very carefully about... I remember when we were building out the match schedule, and that just so happened to land on International Women's Day, and we fought tooth and nail to make sure that it stayed there every time there was a change in the match schedule. So absolutely, it's when you think about if all things are equal, and if the Matildas have done the work against an amazing Philippines, they can't look past Philippines. They're a very good team. I think they're going to be much better than the last time they played them at Perth Stadium. Then they've got to beat Iran, if all things equal, it went off rankings. That's a fight for the potentially final 3 points.
Wow.
So not only is it going to be a spectacular moment off the pitch, they could be both playing for points to whether they top the group or even go through the group. So. The third group matches are always pretty exciting. Yeah, so we have a lot planned. There's going to be some events around it, and we're expecting that one to sell out very quickly.
Sounding very exciting now.
Yeah.
And just one other thing, I guess, I think a lot of things that a lot of Australian or Matildas fans are excited for is the return of Sam Kerr, which is a pretty big thing. I think after almost 20 months, she's finally coming back. But we saw, I remember the stadium just shaking when she came on during the World Cup in that return. What do you think that's I guess, going to do?
Yeah, I just got goosebumps. We actually, I was just in Perth not long ago to launch the mural we had over there, and I was with her parents, and I'm even shocked by how much she is Perth's darling. I forget how, I've known Sam since she was 15. She's a global superstar. And, Perth just absolutely love her. I mean, she has an entire football centre over there. But we had her parents out in front of the cameras, and, they bring a massive media scrum. And so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for the opening match with a very big opening ceremony, and Sam Kerr to be, hopefully fit back on the pitch, starting and scoring. That could be our moment. We all thought Sam Kerr was potentially going to be there against Ireland, and that was going to be the moment. There's going to be a backflip then. It turned out it was against England with some screamer that she scored, from outside the box. So, we visualise these things. I'm expecting it to be big in Perth with Sam.
And you spoke about it a bit before as well, but I guess obviously lots of the other Matildas got a big opportunity, like Razzo and Mary Fowler have grown a lot, but also just seeing some of the opportunities the Matildas have gotten, like Mary Fowler just recently. I'm not sure when this will come out, but just a couple of days ago right now, she was the first female footballer to walk at Paris Fashion Week, and Sam Kerr being the first female footballer on the cover of the FIFA game. Just all of these amazing things happening for them as well.
Yeah, and we will leverage that. I think what that means is that these players domestically and globally have transcended women's sport. We needed that, I think. Women's sport needs female players on the top of the rich list. Not that we use that as a measure, but it shows the progress of investment into the game, but also their demand from a commercial respect. And those two players, there's no bigger female sporting stars. Sporting stars in Australia right now. I mean, the types of contracts Mary's picking up on Runway and L'Oreal. Where you've got players being able to be selective around who they sign up with. And Sam still has that power and demand in the market. And so we're going to leverage that to drive awareness beyond the women's sport. I think something we did really well in the Women's World Cup was, was the number of new fans of women's sport, that will never go back from that. Yes, that we're watching women's football, but I think it woke up Australia to to see that this is something that's different, and it's not something to be threatened by.
Yeah, well, I guess we've spoken a lot about also, and for you being involved in the legacy of the World Cup, but like in terms of the Asian Cup, like what do you want it to be remembered for? Like what do you want Australians to remember about it?
Yeah, well, again, probably off the back of that comment, I'm expecting that there's going to be, half the stadiums that we fill with these 3.1 million Australians that identify with one of the participating nations, and not is Australia, is the fact that they will be new to football. And so I'm hoping that they love it so much, then that translates to going to pick up a ball. I can't tell you how many women come up to me saying, well, I'm actually now playing grassroots football. I'm not very good at it, but, I now play it off the back of, the Women's World Cup. And I'm hoping it inspires that we have more, particularly multicultural fans playing the game, and then also going to watch the game, whether it be through the A-Leagues or going to national team matches. So I think we have something like 45% of our current sales are male. So, I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Most people think it's quite skewed female, but what we're seeing is that we're engaging families, and so families, your traditional families, non-traditional families, love to go to the Matildas, and for many different reasons, whether it's the football, it's the inclusive Taylor Swift-like environment that you get. It's very different to any other kind of match that you go to.
Yeah, I find those figures very interesting. It's good that it's not just, all people are coming, like you said, families, non-traditional families, traditional families as well.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I think maybe even up until the World Cup, particularly mums, sport never spoke to them, right? Like it's not something they would, when you think about entertainment to buy for your family or to do something with your family, it was heavily skewed to dads going to rugby or, going to the soccer, and now mums will purchase the ticket and they'll purchase 4 of them, and then they'll go purchase 4 jerseys, and then so it's had this multiplier effect of, there's not a lot of research on this, but it's interesting that mums usually have a community focus and buy for the family where dads don't. And so you're getting this multiplier effect of fans plus male skewed because they do stuff together. Yeah. Rather than, dad and friend going, or dad and son going, or, they go as a family. So now mums feel like sport's for them.
It's sounding like it's going to be a very inclusive and multicultural event, but really looking forward to it. Starts next March. Thank you so much for your time today, Walshy.
Thanks for the chat. Great to be here.
Thank you.